Your dad said he turned you into the police. Did he turn you into police?
I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm sorry, Ashley's mom. I apologize, I can't do this right now.
Do you have anything else to say to Ashley's mom?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring the tragic case of Ashley Young. She's a young woman from Michigan, and her disappearance really sent shockwaves through her community. And we're going to be looking at podcast excerpts that detail this chilling story. You might find this one especially gripping if you're a true crime enthusiast.
Right.
Now, what makes this case particularly fascinating is that it's not your typical whodunit. We actually know who the perpetrator is.
Yeah.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. This deep dive isn't just about solving a crime. It's about delving into the complexities of human behavior. We have Ashley, who is described as a beacon of positivity and kindness. And then we have Jared, a man with a troubled and often violent past. Understanding their dynamic and the choices that led to this tragedy is our mission today.
Right. The sources really highlight Ashley's bright personality. They describe her infectious smile, her unwavering belief in the good in people. She worked at a group home for adults with special needs and dreamt of becoming a language interpreter. Her life was centered around helping others, and her relationship with her mother, Christine, was incredibly close, almost like best friends.
That close bond between Ashley and her mother becomes a crucial element in this story. It was Christine's intuition, her refusal to believe Ashley simply vanished, that really propelled the investigation forward.
Wait, so you're saying the police weren't initially that helpful?
That's right. Initially, the police didn't consider Ashley's disappearance suspicious. She was an adult, and there was no immediate evidence of foul play.
Okay, that makes sense. But it must have been incredibly frustrating for Christine.
Absolutely. It often falls on loved ones to push for answers, especially in missing person cases where the circumstances are ambiguous.
On the flip side, we have Jared, who, according to the sources, had a reputation for being, well, a bit of a loose cannon. Bullying fights, arrests. He even threatened his own brother with a blowtorch. Everyone who knew him described him as crazy a jerk, someone to steer clear of. What's wild is that Ashley had actually cut ties with Jared a few years earlier after he robbed her.
That's one of the most perplexing aspects of this case. Why would Ashley, knowing Jared's history, reconnect with him? The sources suggest Ashley was going through a difficult period herself, reeling from a recent breakup. Perhaps she sought solace in a familiar face, or maybe, and this is a theory some have proposed, she genuinely believed she could help Jared turn his life around.
So despite warnings from her friends and family, Ashley reached out to Jared and they started spending time together. They went to a hookah lounge, then a bar. And that night, after speaking with her mom on the phone, Ashley disappeared.
That phone call was the last anyone ever heard from Ashley. Christine was expecting to meet her the next day to co-sign a lease. But Ashley never showed up. Her calls went unanswered. When she finally managed to reach Jared, his responses were riddled with inconsistencies and blatant lies. He claimed Ashley was with her ex, then changed his story and gave Christine fake phone numbers. It was a cascade of red flags.
Christine must have been terrified.
Absolutely. She knew something was terribly wrong, but despite her pleas, the police, bound by protocol, were slow to react. It's a tragic reality that sometimes a mother's intuition is far more accurate than official procedures.
So what did Christine do?
Christine refused to sit idly by. She went to the bar where Ashley and Jared were last seen, obtained the security footage, and started putting up missing person flyers. Then, along with some of Ashley's friends, she decided to check out Jared's apartment building. And that's where this already disturbing case takes a truly horrific turn.
Oh no, what happened?
Yeah. One of Ashley's friends noticed something chilling: a saw blade discarded in the trash outside Jared's apartment. It seemed like an insignificant detail at the time, but it was the first thread pulled in a macabre tapestry that would soon unravel.
And this is where the downstairs neighbor Mario enters the picture, right?
That's right. Mario had mentioned a foul odor coming from the basement. Hearing the commotion upstairs, he went down to investigate and stumbled upon a sight that would forever haunt him: a tarp soaked with blood.
I can't even imagine the terror of that moment, what was under the tarp.
The police, alerted by Mario's gruesome discovery, arrived to find a scene straight out of a horror film. Under the tarp was a female torso. No arms, no legs, no head.
Oh my God.
And the horror didn't end there. Scattered throughout the building, they found more disturbing evidence. Additional saw blades, blood-stained clothing, a bucket, a mop. It painted a picture of methodical, calculated brutality.
This wasn't a random act of violence. He clearly tried to cover his tracks.
Exactly. The dismemberment, the deliberate attempt to conceal the body, suggests premeditation, a coldness that sends shivers down your spine. This detail, perhaps more than any other, solidifies the image of Jared as a dangerous and calculating individual.
So the police obviously suspected Jared right away.
Yes, all signs pointed toward him. But as the investigation progressed, another layer of this complex story began to unfold, one that would raise even more disturbing questions.
What do you mean?
Remember how I mentioned that the police were initially slow to react? Well, it turns out that Jared had contacted his parents the day before Ashley's torso was discovered, asking them to pick him up. His brother Conrad noticed him loading suspicious items into their call, including a box with a black plastic bag. They even stopped at Ashley's car, where Jared retrieved more items.
Wait, his parents were involved. His dad was a retired police sergeant, wasn't he?
Yes, and that fact makes their involvement even more unsettling. It's as if he thought his father's background would give them some sort of advantage, a way to outsmart the system.
So what happened when they got back to his parents' house?
Jared started a bonfire in the backyard. He confessed to Conrad that he had killed Ashley and dismembered her body. Conrad urged him to tell their parents, and he did so now. All three of them knew the horrifying truth.
This is where it gets really interesting. They had a choice to make. Turn their son in or help him cover up a murder? What did they decide to do?
Instead of immediately contacting the police, they waited a full day. Then Jared's father, James, drove him to the police station. They claimed they were told to go to a different precinct, but officers there contradicted that statement, saying James refused to let Jared speak without a lawyer.
Hold on. His dad, a former cop, deliberately misled the police. Was he trying to buy Jared time or maybe even strategize a defense using his knowledge of law enforcement procedures?
That's a very real possibility. It's a chilling example of how someone in a position of authority might exploit their knowledge for personal gain, even if it means obstructing justice.
And all of this is happening at the same time. The police are discovering Ashley's torso in the basement. It's like something out of a crime thriller, the tension building on multiple fronts.
It's a stark reminder that real-life cases are rarely neat and tidy. They're messy, full of twists and turns, and sometimes the people you least expect are caught in the crosshairs.
So what happened next?
Armed with a search warrant, the police descended upon Jared's apartment, uncovering even more damning evidence. They discovered receipts showing he had purchased ammonia gloves and bags from a store called Miss Tracy's Party Store, a name almost comically at odds with the grim purpose behind his shopping trip.
A party store? It's too ironic, like something out of a Coen Brothers film. But it also highlights the unsettling reality that darkness can lurk beneath the most mundane facades.
Precisely. And the investigation didn't stop there. They eventually located Ashley's car abandoned on a random street. A search of Jared's parents' house yielded even more incriminating evidence. A shower curtain matching the one ripped down in Jared's apartment saw a blood-soaked washcloth. It became increasingly clear that the parents, whether they knew about the murder beforehand or not, were deeply entangled in the cover-up.
So what happened to Jared and his parents? Were they held accountable for their actions?
Yeah. That's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. The case goes to trial, and the question of Jared's motive, along with the extent of his parents' involvement, takes center stage.
I'm already hooked. I can't wait to hear what happens next. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're in the thick of the Ashley Young case, and last time we left off with Jared and his parents, facing some serious consequences for their actions.
That's right. The evidence against Jared was mounting, and the involvement of his parents, especially his father's attempt to manipulate the legal system, added a layer of complexity and outrage to the whole situation.
So let's talk about the trial. What were the key arguments presented?
The prosecution's case against Jared was strong, but they faced a significant challenge. They couldn't determine Ashley's exact cause of death because her head and neck were never found.
That must have made things difficult.
It did. They had to rely on circumstantial evidence like the bloodstains and spent shell casings found in the basement to argue that Jared either beat Ashley to death or shot her.
Did Jared's legal team present a counter-argument?
The defense attempted to suggest that Ashley might have accidentally shot herself or overdosed, and Jared, panicking, tried to cover it up.
Come on, that seems pretty far-fetched.
It does, especially considering the lengths Jared went to dispose of her body. Even if Ashley's death was accidental, the subsequent dismemberment and elaborate cover-up clearly indicate an intent to deceive and evade responsibility.
What about the testimonies from Jared's brother and neighbor?
They played a crucial role in corroborating the prosecution's theory. Both testified about Jared's history of reckless behavior with firearms, painting a picture of someone impulsive and indifferent to the potential consequences of his actions. This testimony, combined with the physical evidence, helped dismantle the defense's narrative of an accidental death, followed by a panicked cover-up.
So what was the verdict?
The jury saw through the defense's weak arguments. After deliberating, they found Jared guilty on all charges: murder, mutilation of a body, concealing a death, and tampering with evidence.
That must have been a huge relief for Ashley's family, even though they still didn't know where the rest of her remains were.
Absolutely. The guilty verdict was a step towards justice. But the lack of closure, the inability to lay Ashley to rest properly, continued to haunt them.
You mentioned that during the sentencing, Ashley's mother, Christine, delivered a powerful statement. What did she say?
Christine's statement was heart-wrenching. She spoke about the unimaginable pain of losing her daughter, the emptiness of hugging a box containing Ashley's few recovered remains. She directly addressed Jared, calling him out for his cruelty, his lies, and his complete lack of remorse. Her words resonated with everyone present, a testament to a mother's love and the devastating impact of Jared's actions.
I can't imagine the strength it took for her to face him in court and deliver that statement.
It was a testament to her resilience and determination to seek justice for Ashley, but even with a guilty verdict, there was still a long road ahead for Ashley's family. They were determined to find the rest of her remains and hopefully uncover the truth about what happened that night.
Okay, so Jared was convicted. What about his parents? They were clearly involved in the cover-up, and with his father's law enforcement background, it seems like they knew exactly what they were doing.
You're right. The prosecution built a strong case against Jared's parents, focusing on their deliberate actions to help their son conceal the crime. The car trips to dispose of evidence, the bonfire in their backyard, the purchase of cleaning supplies, it all pointed towards a concerted effort to obstruct justice.
And his father, being a retired police sergeant, made it even more blatant, almost as if he thought he was above the law.
The prosecution argued that James, with his insider knowledge of police procedures, may have believed he could outsmart the system or exploit loopholes to protect his son. This element of potential corruption of a former officer using his position for personal gain added another layer of moral complexity to an already horrific situation.
What was the defense's strategy for the parents? Did they deny knowing about the murder?
Their defense was that they were acting out of concern for their son and didn't fully comprehend the gravity of the situation. They tried to downplay their involvement, painting themselves as distraught parents caught in a web of unfortunate circumstances.
But the evidence was pretty damning. The jury must have seen through that.
While the jury ultimately convicted the parents, the outcome wasn't exactly what Ashley's family had hoped for. Barbara pleaded no contest to perjury and being an accessory after the fact, receiving a sentence of 45 days in jail and a year of house arrest. James received a similar sentence of 30 days in jail and a year of house arrest for being accessory after the fact.
Wait, that's it? 45 days for helping cover up a murder? Ashley's family must have been outraged.
They were. The sentences were perceived as a slap on the wrist, a blatant injustice that added insult to injury. It felt like the justice system had failed them, prioritizing the well-being of the perpetrators over the suffering of the victim and her family.
So Jared's convicted. His parents get a relatively light sentence. Does the story end there?
Not quite. Remember, even after being found guilty and sentenced to 100 to 200 years in prison, essentially a life sentence, Jared refused to reveal where he had hidden the rest of Ashley's remains.
He was offered a plea deal earlier, right? What happened with that?
Yes. During the investigation, Jared was offered a deal: 30 years in prison in exchange for revealing the truth about what happened and leading authorities to Ashley's remains. But he declined the offer.
That's mind-boggling. Why would he refuse a chance at a reduced sentence? Especially if he was genuinely remorseful.
It's a question that has haunted investigators and Ashley's family ever since. Some speculate that it's a twisted power play, a way for him to exert control even from behind bars. Others believe it might be a misguided sense of loyalty to his parents, a fear that revealing the truth might implicate them further.
There's a recording of an interview with Jared where he's asked about the location of Ashley's remains, and he seems genuinely conflicted, almost on the verge of revealing something, but then stops himself. It's almost as if he wants to tell the truth, but something is holding him back.
It's a chilling glimpse into the mind of a convicted murderer. Is it genuine remorse, a battle between conscience and self-preservation, or is it another manipulation tactic, a way to inflict further pain on Ashley's family by dangling the possibility of closure and then snatching it away? It's a question that adds yet another layer of complexity to this already baffling case.
So after all of this, after the trial, the sentencing, the heartbreak, Ashley's family still doesn't have closure.
That's the tragic reality. The legal proceedings may have concluded, but the emotional and psychological toll on Ashley's loved ones continues. The not knowing the unanswered questions, the inability to lay their daughter and friend to rest, it's a burden they carry with them every day.
I'm curious, with all the twists and turns, the family drama, the legal maneuvering, what do you think was Jared's primary motive? Was it a fit of rage? Was he trying to rob her and things went wrong? Or was it something even darker, something we haven't considered?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, we may never know the definitive answer. The lack of a clear motive is one of the most frustrating aspects of this case. It leaves a void, a sense of incompleteness that adds to the tragedy.
So where does that leave us with Jared behind bars and his parents facing minimal consequences? It feels like justice hasn't truly been served.
It's a sentiment echoed by Ashley's family and many who have followed this case while the legal system has delivered its verdict. The moral and ethical implications continue to resonate. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the limitations of justice, the enduring power of family loyalty, and the devastating consequences of choices made in the shadows of a horrific crime.
And what about Ashley's family? Are they still searching for answers?
Absolutely. They haven't given up hope. They've offered a substantial reward for any information leading to the recovery of Ashley's remains. It's a testament to their unwavering determination to find closure to honor Ashley's memory, and to ensure that her story, despite its tragic end, continues to be told.
It's a heartbreaking case, filled with so many layers of complexity and unanswered questions. What will you be reflecting on as we move into the final part of this deep dive?
I think the reward offered by Ashley's family is particularly intriguing. What does it say about their hopes and expectations? Do they believe someone else out there knows something? Someone who might be swayed by the promise of money? Or is it a more symbolic gesture? A desperate attempt to reclaim some agency in a situation where they feel powerless? It's a question that speaks to the profound and enduring impact of this case, one that continues to reverberate long after the courtroom drama has subsided.
It's incredible to me that despite everything, Ashley's family continues to search for answers and closure. The reward they've offered for information really speaks to their unwavering determination, their refusal to let her memory fade into obscurity.
It's a powerful testament to the enduring bond between a mother and her daughter. Despite the immense grief and frustration they've endured, they cling to the hope that someone out there knows something that could finally bring them peace.
But it also raises questions, doesn't it? Who are they hoping to reach with this reward? Do they believe someone else was involved? Someone who might be tempted to come forward with information? Or is it a more desperate plea, a message in a bottle tossed into the sea of uncertainty?
That's the heart of the matter, isn't it? This reward in many ways encapsulates the complexities of this case. It speaks to the enduring power of hope, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy. But it also highlights the lingering frustration, the unanswered questions that continue to haunt those closest to Ashley.
This case really has you questioning everything. We've got a seemingly good-natured young woman, Ashley, who befriended a troubled individual despite warnings from those who knew him best. We've got a perpetrator, Jared, with a history of violence, who commits a brutal act and refuses to offer any explanation or show any remorse. And then we have his parents, who instead of doing the right thing, chose to protect their son, further compounding the pain and suffering of Ashley's family.
It's a story that forces us to confront the darker aspects of human nature, the choices people make when confronted with extraordinary circumstances. It challenges our assumptions about good and evil, about the boundaries of loyalty, and the price of justice.
The fact that Jared's father was a retired police officer adds another layer of intrigue. Did he truly believe he could manipulate the system to protect his son? Did his knowledge of law enforcement procedures embolden him to make choices that most parents wouldn't even consider?
That's a question that continues to fuel speculation and debate. It speaks to the potential for corruption, the blurring of lines between personal loyalty and public duty, and it underscores the importance of accountability, of ensuring that those in positions of authority don't abuse their power for personal gain.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to the question of Jared's motive. What could possibly have driven him to commit such a horrific act? Was it a sudden outburst of rage, a botched robbery attempt, or was it something more calculated, more sinister that we haven't even considered?
The lack of a clear motive is one of the most unsettling aspects of this case. It leaves us with a sense of incompleteness, a void that can never truly be filled. We're left to grapple with the possibility that we may never fully understand the darkness that led to Ashley's tragic end.
And that brings us to the reward offered by Ashley's family. Their unwavering hope that someone somewhere holds a piece of the puzzle. That could finally bring them some peace. Is it a realistic hope? Or is it a desperate attempt to find meaning in a senseless tragedy?
That's a question I'll leave with you, our listener, as you reflect on the Ashley Young case. Consider the implications of that reward. What does it say about the enduring nature of hope, about the enduring power of a mother's love, and about the enduring need for answers, even when those answers seem elusive?
This deep dive has been a roller coaster of emotions, shock, anger, sadness, and a profound sense of injustice. But more than anything, it's left me with a renewed appreciation for the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing those we love.